All right. Happy Friday. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Sudozi Finance Friday. Every week, I speak with someone in the finance or operations team making really strategic decisions for their company. And today, I'm excited to have Vivienne Wei here. Vivienne is the VP of Technology Operations and Strategy at Salesforce, making a lot of tough decisions and a lot of trade-offs, and we'll dig into that all today. Welcome, Vivienne.
Hey, so good to see you again, Rose. Great to be on this platform.
Thank you. Thanks. Before we dive into some more of the technical stuff, how about if you don't mind sharing your early career and how you got to Salesforce in the first place?
Yeah, so I started my career on Wall Street and was in investment banking, focusing on cross-border mergers and acquisitions. And after business school, I was really thinking about, doing a transition, going from being an agent to principal. So I really wanted to join a company, seeing things through from acquisition to integration and capturing the value from those businesses that we acquire. And Salesforce was certainly a large acquisition cloud, and we've expanded our platform. So it's been a really fun journey.
Nice. And so when you first got into Salesforce, share a little bit about that role and how that's evolved in these past few years to the role that you have now.
Yeah, so when I first joined Salesforce, this was about 6 years ago. Salesforce was very core and sales service cloud oriented. And I led the integration of our marketing cloud business. At the time, it was the largest acquisition we had ever done into the main kind of cloud business. And then over time, I just built really good relationships with teams, and I joined the marketing cloud team to run engineering, ops, and strategy. And when I first started, it was a moment where I spoke a lot of the financial language, looking at our large data center investment through a financial lens, but being part of the technology organization, also partnering very closely with some of the smartest, brightest engineers and DevOps characters, and learning their language and how to think about, how to optimize and where we invest. It's certainly been a fun journey of learning how to speak different languages, but also bring more of the cross-functional expertise into people to make good decisions.
Yeah, going back to that integration experience, what's a story that you won't forget that you're like, oh, I learned so much from this experience, whether it's working with certain people, different systems, tooling? Would love to hear sort of an anecdote from that time.
Yeah, it was interesting because I had come in and my charter was actually just focusing on how our core business, the main Salesforce platform operates and expands. And I was like, well, I came from this M&A background. And I had this curiosity of, hey, where are the data centers for this largest acquisition we just bought? And so led the effort, talked to my manager, and was like, hey, we need to bring them in. And when I took a flight to Indianapolis, which is where ExactTarget at the time was headquartered, the team was like, hey, we've been waiting for you. Where have you been this whole time? And so it really goes back to when we do large acquisitions, we always have to think through the integration piece and how we bring the acquired teams into the fold and how we help them integrate into how we operate and get efficiency, and also drive capture a lot of the value from the initial thesis.
Right.
So it was very much
exactly
recognizing that need. And also being there, and initially I was like, oh, would they even want to talk to us? But little did I realize, hey, once we showed up, for them, it was so difficult to navigate through this big company, right? And know who the right people are.
Yeah. And as you're going through that, month by month, quarter by quarter, you're coming from the modeling side, right? The Excel side of putting those efficiencies and those metrics together. To the extent you can share, how did that translate to reality as you were doing the integrations, making the switch and really combining two different organizations?
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of piece regarding like process and tooling that we needed to invest in to help the team create common visibility into that decision framework. So not only just like the modeling piece, but also like understanding the people aspect, like what are their strong suits and what are some of the toolings they need that maybe we're a bit more mature and we can introduce to them. So I led a lot of the systems integration as well from the standpoint of like, hey, getting the data from them so we can apply some of the common tools we've already built to make those decisions. And that's been actually yielding a lot of returns as an example, because people used to do it in spreadsheets, right? And then from integrating that into the system, it helped us with a lot of the monitoring, looking at machine level utilization. So much of the technology kind of investment is on that, right? You go from 4% utilization to 60% utilization, impacting the investments we make. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, or talk about orders of magnitude, right? Like adding zeros there. Awesome. And so now that the organizations merged, I'll put that in air quote. As you all are thinking about the next budgeting cycle and the stakeholders there, share a little bit about how that first sort of combined process on the new combined budget worked out.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of kind of creating some common frameworks. I was sharing before, like we had Jeffrey Moore come in and talk to us about, hey, 4 zones of operation. So the business we're in is a portfolio of acquisitions itself. It has like 9 different acquisitions, and we focus a lot on integrating them. But at the same time, when it comes to like budgeting and investment decisions, it's a lot about given the business and where it's at from, whether it's a transformation stage, whether it's into innovation stage, whether it's more of a performance stage, the needs are very different. But there is a set of common frameworks that we introduce, especially from a modeling standpoint, looking at both top line and customers we have, what their ramp curve look like, to bottom line. Hey, what are the different AWS environment or first party investments we need to make to come up with like a joint ROI, and then pulling that together to look at like, hey, this is where we need to invest more resources, and this other one we can actually drive more efficiency to fund the investments we need to make for a high growth business within our portfolio to maximize our return.
Yeah. And as you're going through that process, there are like literally hundreds of variables that can float, right? Like they can move around. You push this gets, goes up by 10% or whatnot. In building that framework, were there any sort of like fixed values? Like, hey, we don't want this to fall below 10%, or we don't want this metric to balloon to be across, above this. So we need to validate that in any budget we put together. Were there any variables that come to mind that were like, this we should really be aware of, like this metric at this time frame?
Yeah, we always talk a lot. We think a lot about the SaaS margin, right? Like the rule of 40 that we actually apply to our business and how we look at it. If you think about Salesforce, how we operate within the board, bigger frame, we use that, and then for our internal kind of portfolio management and deciding on where we should expand it geographically, that is another kind of metric we look at.
Yeah, got it. All right, so transitioning a little bit, maybe not too much of a transition. So in this role here as a VP, I know you just mentioned you have a very efficient team and actually a very tight team that you're running. Share a little bit about your top priorities in this market with uncertainty, a lot going on in the macro world. What are some of the things that you want to make sure you and the team are prioritizing this quarter and into next year?
Yeah, it was actually pretty interesting. I think our chief product officer talks about a typical enterprise has 940 plus applications. So similar to us, like we think a lot about, hey, all of with all of the tooling we have today from like a software perspective, right? Like, are there optimizations we can do at a portfolio level? So scrutinizing over,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, are we actually using everything we have purchased to
Right,
inform
right.
our renewal strategy? And then from a growth perspective, looking at, hey, going to next year, here's what we're forecasting from like an ACV perspective, but what are the key investments we absolutely have to make from both like a people
Yep,
prioritization standpoint, but also like data center footprint for geo expansion. Where can we unlock certain opportunities that have data residency requirements, that we have
yep.
high customer demands to help capture, to really serve our customers, as well as like capture some of the value that we need for our
Yeah,
business.
yeah. Makes a lot of sense. It's there's probably a lot of data floating around in all those processes and all those touch points you've mentioned, and um, it- how frequently would you say like the whole team comes together to make some of these strategic decisions? How do you operate, in terms of like a lot of our viewers as well as our customers that we're working with, there's stuff that the strategy team and the finance team does sort of in isolation, right? Like you don't want to be
Mhm.
meeting with everyone every day,
Yep.
but then
Yep.
maybe they come together weekly, maybe they come together, bi-weekly. Could you talk a little bit about that cadence that you have with the teams and the decision making there?
Yeah, it really depends on what we operate on. So, for example, like first party, we look at it on a monthly basis, right? What our demand looks like and investment together with our finance team and our capacity management team. For public cloud, it is a daily kind of monitoring.
Yeah,
Everybody needs to own the budget, right? The service ownership really becomes front and center. And this is not something that like finance team with biz ops like reviewing on a monthly basis. It's already too
yeah,
late. So there's
yeah,
a big
yeah.
cultural transformation that we're driving
Right.
with the teams, right? Across like our
Real
thousands of
time.
developers, looking at
Yeah,
actively managing and monitoring, the Tableau tools we've already built for our cloud environments, and how we're spending relative to forecast, but also are there any anomalies from potential configurations or customer usage
yeah.
that we need to catch and
Right, right.
proactively address. And
Yeah,
then we have weekly cadence of like managing our cloud rhythms, and but we bring together a cross-functional team. So not only the financial teams and cloud business office, but also like our developers, right? These are some
right,
of the
right.
DevOps leads who are actively looking at this and looking at optimizing. And this is where like speaking the different language and bringing that together really comes to life, because it is like a cross-functional diversity set of experiences that'll help us
Yeah.
drive the most value for our business.
Yeah, that's actually surprising to me. I didn't realize that you were going so granular at, like, almost a daily level and making sure
Yes.
there's no anomalies in, like, customer usage or, some weird data thing coming in. Without disclosing anything confidential, are there any anecdotes you can share about how you've triaged, a weird customer usage or something that's happened that, you had the tracking for and you could see happen?
Yeah, I mean, we built tools around this, and for one of the customers, like during one of our regular cadence, it came to light that they're using a set of our capabilities in a way that we didn't think they would. And so we
Intend.
had to like proactively reach out to them and bring that visibility to them, so that they know, oh, okay, well, this is causing this. We're just playing around with the
Some
tool,
feature. Yeah.
right? So through that conversation, it really helped to bring that visibility to them, instead of us just like sending them a bill. It's also a reinforcing function of like, hey, this is how we build trust, right? That iterative conversation
Yeah.
to bring right the information we didn't have
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, no, that's super fascinating. In that sort of triaging, you like probably have product leaders, customer
Yeah.
success, your team, finance team, all like huddling together, figure out like, hey, what's actually going on here, and what should we do as the next steps in this
Yeah,
situation?
exactly.
Super
Exactly. And
fascinating.
those can't wait, right? Because when you're running on the
Yeah,
cloud, you let that wait for a month, it's dollar out the door.
yeah, totally. All right, last few minutes here. I just wanted to touch on just high level trade offs, advice to other finance leaders, strategy leaders as they're thinking through investments in technology, whether it's infrastructure or other tooling, things like that. Any like quick tips and frameworks that you're using with the team?
Yeah, I think we're in a time of a lot of uncertainty. So people are delaying certain decisions on what purchases they want to make. And it really goes back to the prioritization and focusing not only, you mentioned teams, strategy teams often look at it in potentially on their own, right? And this is the moment to really connect with the business leaders and sales leaders to look at it to look at our decisions holistically. And for especially for a large company, it is hard to bring that group together, but now more than ever we need to have more scenario based planning and use
Yeah,
real time data to make those decisions.
yeah.
So it's
Um,
that cycle, and it could feel sometimes like, oh, we're looking at this again, and what phase are we in? But really, it is how we should operate.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, before we wrap up here, wanted to have you share a little bit about your leadership and some of the sort of non-technical things working with all these different departments. I know you've offered the book and you've done a lot of leadership activity within Salesforce. Would love for you to share a little bit of that too.
Yeah, a lot of that is actually from my experience working with a cross-functional team. I just love the fact that our team is very diverse, and from not only like where we came from, the background, ethnical diversity, but also the diversity of thoughts and experiences. And so, I've been a big proponent of women leadership and how we
Hmm.
support women, especially during their transition to motherhood. And so my book was on like labor force, but it's the reason why I wrote it is because I truly believe in the diversity of thoughts, whether it's you're women, URM, wherever you're coming from,
Hmm.
and whether you're a developer or a finance person, people have different skill sets. And when we bring all that together, especially during a time of uncertainty, and we can all feel like in the hybrid world, it's easy to feel that things getting transactional. But when we take the time to bring the teams together to make decisions jointly, that's when we make the best decisions.
Yeah, you get the best of everyone, right? The
Yeah.
brightest and the sharpest, and having that relationship and awesome. All right, before we let you go, bringing you back maybe to your banking days, favorite Excel tip, shortcut, what comes to mind right now?
Oh my gosh, that is a tough one. This other day since we're talking about scenario planning, I was talking to one of the teams about sensitivity tables and how do we look at different sensitivity tables you can make for like if our adoption changes, what are demands
Mommy,
would
the
change.
panda things you wanted are here.
Okay, great.
Can I have a
Yeah, in a little bit.
why in a little bit? I want one right
Okay, I'm in the middle of
In
the
real
call.
life,
Right.
leadership in real
I
life.
know.
Yeah.
Public holiday, so my kids are off to school, off from school.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for that, Vivian. I'll let you get going and take on other responsibilities for lunchtime. All right, thanks so much. Have a good one.
So great to see you. Take care. Bye.